James, who you may know from Traders Lab as the negotiator. He'll be kind of monitoring the questions, and if during the presentation there are some things that aren't clear, Mystic Forex, who's also another one of your community managers, and his name is Chris, James will stop him and make sure that you guys have your answers to your questions. In addition, when we get to the end of the presentation, we'll allow you guys to ask really any trading question you want. It doesn't have to be Forex related, though we obviously have a Forex theme here today. Certainly it doesn't have to be specifically to Forex. We're just kind of here to help you guys out. That's all part of the Traders Lab community. Obviously there's nothing that's going to be pitched, sold, whatever here, so don't worry about that. We don't really have an end game. Really, this is just all about pure content and sharing information with you guys, and hopefully vice versa. Hopefully this will kind of open your eyes to some potential strategies and things that you can use in your day-to-day trading. So what I wanted to do to kind of kick this off and get us going is we're going to ask you a few questions on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and put these up, and all you have to do is just click in on an answer. So the first one is really simple, just trying to figure out what all of you currently trade who are joining us today live. So you just kind of click in. You can click more than one. I've kind of opened this up so it's not just one answer only. And you've got Forex, futures, stock, options, or other. So give us a good handle. Obviously, we're probably, because we said this topic is going to be on Forex, I'm sure we're going to get a little higher lean than probably the norm on Traders Lab. We probably, in the surveys that we've done, have actually seen maybe futures slightly ahead of Forex, but I have a feeling it'll be a little different here today. So I'll give you all just another second or two to get voted. We got about 84% of the people have voted, so that's probably good enough to say that this is a good result. So let me share the results with you guys too. So we've got about 60% Forex, right? 48% futures, and a good healthy split between stock and options. So the good news is some of what you're going to hear from Chris today I really think can actually be used in other markets. He focuses almost specifically and primarily on Forex, but obviously when it comes to trading with pivots, I bet you there's some things that you can kind of bring into other portions of your trading. So let's go ahead and move on to the next question here. And we're just kind of curious how long you've been trading. Obviously, you've got one answer, one choice, 0 to 1 years, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, and 10 plus. So this gives us an idea of the experience level overall on this live webinar. And we'll let you guys go ahead and click in on that. I'll wait till we've got about a little bit over 80% of you have clicked in, and then I'll share the results. Looks like we got a pretty pretty good experience in the group here, which is great. So let me go ahead and show you guys what we've got. So what does it look like? About 1 to 3 years is probably right in the main experience level, and if you were to probably kind of do the math and find the mean here, it's probably right in that 3 to 5 year range. We've got some beginners and some real advanced people. A pretty good split between 9% on the beginning side and 13% on the highly experienced. But that's good. A real nice cross section of people. So again, thanks for joining us. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Really simple. Just want to know if you currently are a day trader, a swing trader, or really you do both. So pretty simple. We probably have a lot of, I'm going to guess, active traders. I mean, usually people who spend time, on trading forums and active communities like Traders Laboratory probably are going to be active traders. But I'm sure we'll have a little mix of, probably day trading will be number one, and then both will be number two. So go ahead and let a few more people click in here. Not much to think about on this one, obviously. All right, so no surprise, right? Most of you are doing at least some day trading. I mean, if we added that up, we got about 94% of you doing at least some day trading, and only about 6% doing exclusively swing trading. Me personally, I'm probably right in that split. I'm on both. I do day trading every single day, but I'm also a big fan of swing trading. I think there's a real place for it. So maybe a future topic is we'll cover some really neat strategies that you can use in swing trading, because it's kind of perfect when you work it into what you do on the day trade side. This one is just how often you visit Traders Laboratory, daily, weekly, monthly. No wrong or right answer here, though the wrong answers are weekly and monthly. No, I'm kidding. So ideally, a lot of you come in daily, but I'm sure for some of you, you kind of come when you can. So we'll kind of let you guys click in on that, and we'll share that with you. There's, as you know, so much to be learned. If you spend some time in Traders Lab, I hope you guys will. If maybe this webinar will kind of motivate you to do that. Just great content that comes in every day. We've got a pretty amazing community of traders. You've already seen you've got a lot of experienced people on this call. It's pretty incredible if you've got questions on trading. Just put them out there, and I've done it myself. And sometimes you get answers. I mean, within an hour or two that you just couldn't find anywhere. So we've got about a quarter of you coming in every day. Really appreciate that. That's awesome. About 46% coming pretty regular on a weekly basis. And those of you coming monthly, you need to come more often. So let's move on to last question. And just want to know what you would like more topics, maybe on the Traders Lab site, more webinars, presentations. What topics interest you the most? Obviously, I can only fit 5 here, so there may be others that you're very interested in, but this will kind of give us a start. And you can click more than one, so it'll kind of help us out. Obviously, here today, we're talking trade strategies. But we've got things like money management, trade psychology, if you're more into the more mechanical approach to trading, or the technical side. And there's many more topics, of course, we can put up here, but it kind of gives you an idea of, and this will help us kind of determine maybe what we should focus in on. We do have some future webinars planned, including for some fairly well-known traders that are out there, so we think you guys will be excited about that. So make sure you read the emails from us, read the updates that we send you with the top posts a few times a week. Those are always the best place to learn what's happening next. All right, so let's share this. And you've got 85% say, hey, trading strategies, that's what it's all about. I'm with you on that, and that's what we're going to be covering today. And then you can see a nice split between trade psych and money management, and then about a third of you more interested in some of the technical sides of trading overall. So appreciate you guys spending the time to answer those questions. Let's go ahead and get started on the presentation portion here. So Chris, I'm going to hand over to you the presentation. So my screen is should now be down. And you go ahead and start your broadcast, and I'll let you know when we can see it here. And while he's doing that, I should just do a quick introduction. Mystic Forex is the name that he goes by, the handle on Traders Lab. We also know him as Chris, and he's going to be doing the main presentation here today. James, who goes by the Negotiator online, also one of our community managers, is going to be helping us sort of monitor the questions. We'll be typing in some answers to you. I already see we've got some questions. If we don't hit your question as we go, I promise they all get queued up for James, so we're not going to miss any of them. So with that being said, Chris, I see your MetaTrader here on the screen. It's all you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris McLaughlin, a.k.a. Mystic Forex is my user ID on the site. And I wanted to talk today a little bit about using pivot points in Forex. I've been trading about 6 years. I only trade spot Forex, and I've been fortunate enough to meet some people that just opened my eyes to some pretty enlightening uses of different systems, and in particular pivot points, which is what we're going to talk about today. I should say that I'm not a professional speaker or teacher. I'm just a trader, so my presentation may not be quite as smooth as you're accustomed to, so just bear with me. And the use of pivot points that I'm going to show you today, I believe, is a rather unique use of them, and I don't know of anyone else that's really using them in this manner. What I have on my chart here, this is a 4-hour chart of the pound Swiss. I'm using 4 hours so that I could get a lot of time in here to give you a lot of examples. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the Mondays R3 and S3. First of all, you have to show these properly, you have to have an MT4 platform that shows the Sunday candle, which is exactly 4 hours, and the red vertical lines here are the Sunday candles. So I marked them off here for easy reference. Now, I don't know what the exact statistics are, but I just can't remember the last time that the pound Swiss didn't hit either R3 or S3 on a Monday. One of the reasons for that is is that on Monday they're relatively close together because the Sunday candle is so small. But using that knowledge, with keeping that in the back of your mind, that price will hit either R3 or S3, and sometimes both on that Monday. I'm sure there are ways, many ways, traders can figure out how to make money in that. And I'm not, first let me also state that I'm not teaching a system here. I just wanted to bring some things to light. I'm not going to tell you, you know, this is what I do, so you should do it too. And anything that you do try to do, make sure you back test it first, which I probably don't have to tell most of you folks. So just to show you some examples here, here's Sunday, here's the first Monday candle. The red line is S3. Oh yeah, I should explain this here. The red lines are the R3s and the S3s. These blue lines are the daily pivots, and these dark orange lines are the weekly pivots. So Monday opens up, we hit S3. The week after that, Monday opens up, we hit S3. The week after that, Monday opens, we hit R3. Week after that, R3, and so on. We can go right up to the present. And last week, the market opens up, hits R3, then comes down and hits S3. This past Monday was a U.S. bank holiday. I don't normally trade on U.S. bank holidays, but it came within 7 pips of hitting R3. So it almost worked out even on a bank holiday. So there are several things you could do. Knowing if you want, you could put a put a limit order. This isn't a way. It's not a get rich quick type of deal. I usually go for like 20 or 30 pips, depending on how closely spaced the R3 and S3 is. Any questions so far? The next thing I wanted to show you was that the pound Swiss has a very, very high probability of hitting the weekly pivot. The weekly pivot are these orange lines here. You can see just about every weekly pivot has been hit. This one wasn't hit. Hit, 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 hit. This one wasn't hit. Hit. This one wasn't hit. And so far this week's pivot hasn't been hit. It's been my experience that a pivot point is valid for 3 periods. So if you're talking about a daily pivot point, it would be valid for 3 days. If you're talking about a weekly pivot point, it would be valid for 3 weeks. So in this case here, this pivot point wasn't hit, but 1, 2, 3 weeks later it was hit. Let's see, this pivot point wasn't hit. 1, 2, 3 weeks later it's hit. This pivot point wasn't hit. 1, 2 weeks later, today, or actually late yesterday, it was hit. So a pivot point is usually valid for 3 periods. Now, what could be possible ways that we could take advantage of that? You don't just wait for price to get really far away from the pivot and hope it's going to turn around and place an order going to the pivot. You know, which sometimes can be several hundred pips away. I guess you could try that, but it's not really a high probability setup unless you know that you know, you're using some other indicator that tells you that absolutely positively price is going to turn around and move back up to the weekly pivot. The fellow that devised the system is a trader I know by the name of Michael Kane. And Mike, I would say, is probably about the second to third best trader I have ever met in my life. The guy is just phenomenal. And he devised the system. I guess we started using it about 2.5 years ago. And it took him over 2 years to finalize this system, and he back-tested this system for about a period of a year using Forex Tester, which enabled him to compress, years and years of time into that 2-year period. And the main part of devising the system was the money management, getting money management that makes sense. And what he came up with was a system of placing limit orders just before or above, whether price is above or below the pivot point. You could place a pivot point. So now, let's say, for instance, this week's pivot hasn't been hit. History shows us that usually a pivot point is hit within a 3-week period of time. Oh, and I should also add that I use a 20 pip buffer. If I'm aiming, my take profit is for a weekly pivot, I will use a 20 pip buffer, and that's just to compensate for differences in spreads, different trading platforms, and things like that. So this pivot point, weekly pivot point here, wasn't actually touched, but it's within 20 pips. So I would actually consider this pivot point has been hit. What you could do is, these moving averages actually have nothing to do with this system. It's just something I have on the chart. But you could put a limit order at a certain point below this weekly pivot, and when price starts moving back up, rather than trying to guess when price is going to start moving back toward the pivot, when price is in fact moving towards the pivot, you could place a limit order somewhere below the weekly pivot and set your profit to 20 pips before the weekly pivot. That's one way you could do it. What this fellow Mike does, Michael Kane, when price is 100 pips or more away from the weekly pivot, he will stack 10 positions. He'll make 10 entry orders. The first one opens at 70 pips before the pivot, the second one at 65, the third one 60, 55, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, etc. So that he has 10 positions open, and they all take profit at 20 pips before the weekly pivot. Now, he uses a sub-account for this because his stop loss is a margin call. Okay, but on a winning trade, he gains 27% of his account. On a losing trade, he loses 100% of the account. And I did, let's see if I could find it here. No, I think I put it. I don't think I have that on this PC. I made a graph showing all of these points and which ones would have been losers and which ones would have been winners. So out of the last 46 weeks, there were 5 losers, which means he would have lost 500% of his account. There were 2 that didn't open, and there were 39 winners. So I think when you subtract the 500% that he lost, his his profit over a 46-week period would have been somewhere around 431%, which really isn't bad. So it's real high probability. That's the way he trades it. That is not the way I trade it. I just don't have the stomach for that type of trading. I did it once and it closed successfully, but watching it whipsaw back and forth with 10 positions open, or actually at that point there was 6 positions open, was almost unbearable for me. And that's not the way I trade. So I usually take one position. But that's just one of the ways that these pivot points can be utilized. I don't know of anybody else that uses them like this, and like I said, it's all just based on numbers, on probabilities. There are no indicators. You're not looking for the red line to cross the blue line. Like I said, these moving averages are for something different that I use.
Hey Chris, let me interrupt you real quick.
Sure.
Quick question here. So you're using the weekly pivots basically as like a magnet, an attractant to price, and
Yes.
you're getting in basically shy of that level, and of course looking to take a profit on that attractant up to the weekly pivot. And like you say, you don't want to make it super precise for a lot of different reasons. You want to just have it come close. So that makes sense. I guess the question I would have hearing this, and maybe some other people have the same thought, is let's just say this week, and we can see your most current week, your most current weekly pivot, and we could see maybe you'd have 1 to 10, whatever the case may be, potential buy positions lined up at this point. When do you give up on this week's weekly pivot? Let's say that in this case, this market, the pound franc just keeps going down. New week comes around. Do you start all over, or are you willing to kind of hold those positions in for any length of time?
Well, like I said, I would the entry orders you're talking about.
Right.
Okay, first off, one of the rules of Michael's system, which I sort of got sidetracked onto. I didn't really mean to talk about his system. Oh, you know what it was? There's a thread on the site about, is there a 100% completely mechanical system?
Right.
And I posted to the thread saying that I would talk a little bit during the webinar about a 100% mechanical system, not automated.
Sure.
Mechanical system. And like I said, one of the rules of the system that Michael uses is that, let's say in this current week that we're in now, if the trade hasn't opened by Thursday, by the end of New York session on Thursday, he cancels the orders.
Okay.
Because we don't use this system on Friday. And I'm actually glad you brought that up, because one of the reasons I have the pound Swiss open is that it works best on pairs that move, pairs that move like a freight train. The pound Swiss is one of them. When the pound Swiss or the pound yen or even the pound Aussie, when they take off, you could see it. You could see it. It's going somewhere, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to go up at least to the pivot. And yes, absolutely, these things are extremely powerful magnets. So, for instance, the pound Swiss is going down. In the back of my mind, and I've been shorting the crap out of it. In the back of my mind, I'm looking for maybe a retest coming back down, even though we said this was, I would consider it hit, but there's a very distinct possibility it could come back down to say like the 148.50 level. You can also use the daily pivots in the same way. They're not as powerful as the weekly pivots, obviously, but now here's a daily pivot that's really hung out here all by itself, and that's at 146.80. I have it here. That could be another possibility. These pivot points are very strong magnets. Obviously, weekly is stronger than daily, but very few instances I find that somewhere, 6 months down the road, these pivot points eventually get touched by price, or very, very close.
Hey, a couple cool questions from some people just to catch up here really fast. Somebody wants to know, I guess it was DW, what if the week opens, which I can see how this could happen, and you're within like that 70 pips of the pivot. Sometimes you can even open right on the pivot. Is there like you want to see a little bit of distance away from it before you start,
Yes, I would wait until price moves 100 pips away.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And I can also add that Michael just does his one trade a week. He calls it the Monday Accelerator. But I know other traders that, let's say the weekly pivot is hit on a Monday, and then price moves more than 100 pips away in either direction, above or below. They will set the trade up again, and as often as not, the trade will open again and close again successfully, so that they'll have two of these trades in a week's time. So yes, in the case of like right here, we opened up right on the weekly pivot, and then we moved very far away from the pivot. That's when you could have opened up your entry orders back to this pivot, and I would close them Thursday for Friday, because as you noticed, the markets tend to run out of steam on a Friday, and this whole thing is about momentum. Pound Swiss moves with momentum, usually goes into a range-bound state for a while, and then moves with momentum again. Same thing with the pound yen. A lot of the pound crosses. Theoretically, from a numbers point of view, it should work good on any pair, but they just seem to work better on pound crosses, because when they really move with some momentum.
Okay. KB wants to know where do you find the pivot numbers? I don't know if you mentioned as far as this indicator or getting this indicator on a MetaTrader chart.
Yeah, I started a new thread, I think 2 days ago, on the site. I'm trying to remember where I put notes. There was a thread there, something about expert advisors, and I uploaded these indicators to that thread.
Okay, maybe James, maybe you can find the thread and just go into the chat area and just give us the link.
Yeah, because I'm trying to look for it now, but I just can't do two things at once.
Yeah. No problem. And talk a little bit about. So I think KB also asked about working on all pairs, but I think you said you've got to focus on the momentum-based pairs. So pound franc. I think you mentioned pound yen, pound Aussie.
Yeah. And pound dollar. Well, I have a couple of charts here that we could take a look at. Sure. This is the U.S. dollar, Canadian dollar, and that it works pretty well on that as well. As you can see, all these weekly pivots are hit. Okay, all these weekly pivots are hit. This one wasn't. Well, this is close enough to be considered hit. So it works pretty well on that. Since this pair doesn't move quite as fast as the pound crosses, you may be in it a little longer, but it has just as high a probability of hitting as one of the pound crosses. Here's the Aussie dollar. Weekly pivot, weekly pivot, weekly pivot. This one opened on it, never came back.
Chris.
Yes.
Was it marketindex.mq4? The indicator?
No, that is this. See how down here? That's this indicator right here.
Right.
Which,
sure. Okay.
For older folks like myself, one of my biggest complaints, well, not the only one, but one of the biggest complaints, is how small price is. And I would always have to put my face close to the screen to see price. And this is a magnified market. Is that what it's called?
Ivan just shared a link there I sent to everybody. That might be it. So you might want to take a look at that one. It's the MT4-indicators-9336.html.
I
Is that the one?
believe.
All right, we'll work on that. Let's continue to move on. So a couple other questions here. Let's just kind of catch up here real quick on some of these. Okay, so we talked about which pairs work best. Zan is asking something about 3-day pivots. Does anybody use 3-day pivots? I actually have never even heard of 3-day pivots.
Yeah, I haven't heard of them actually.
Yeah, you can probably
but
slice
I'm sure
a thousand ways.
They're probably if you
the
take
one thing
3
that people
days and do the high, low, open, close, I'm sure there's a way you could figure out what it is.
The one thing people do look at 3 days for is to filter out one spurious day of price activity. So I know people do look at 3 days as a way of just applying daily indicators perhaps in a more stable way, if you like, without looking at a whole week. But I guess it could be. I mean, it depends what works for you.
Sure. Floyd wants to know, well, with the indicators that you have on here, you've got the weekly and you've got the daily. Are you using 2 different indicators, or are you applying the indicator 2 different times?
No, that's one indicator. It's
okay.
I posted that on the site as well. It's called Daily Pivot Points, and all of the R3s, the S3s, the dailies, and the weeklies. There's also S1 and S2 in here, but I have them colored white so that you can't see it. See, so my daily pivots are cornflower. These are just whited out. These should be like S1, S2, R1, R2, and you can obviously color them anything you like. Now, etc. That's a gross color, but.
And a question here from DW on you talked about the 10 trades. Do you know, is it something that he likes to use as equal position sizing, like not favor any one of those 10 trades over another? It's just 10%, 10%, 10%.
Yeah, you're talking about like the full 10 trades that Michael sets up.
Yeah, right. If you're going to
yeah, he does.
Like that.
Yeah, he devised this method. Because of the amount of back testing that he did on the method, he has complete confidence in the method. He could lose 2 weeks in a row, and the following week he's gonna stack his 10 trades and let it rip. And what he would do is basically, let's say you have $1,000 account. Each position would be $1. So on a $1,000 account, your gain on the 10 trades closing successfully would be $270, 27%. If the trade is unsuccessful and you lose 100%, it wouldn't quite be 100% because whatever margin you were using would still be in the account. I didn't figure out how much margin. I guess because different people use different margins. Sure. His account is margined to the max.
Right, so he sets up, he knows coming into it whether somebody can risk $100 in a week or $500 or $200 or $1,000. That's what he knows is the max loss, but you better come into this knowing that you can get wiped out for whatever that's in the account. So obviously you don't let it all ride. You're
oh no, that's why I said this is definitely yeah. If you're going to trade it like that, which I don't, it has to be a sub account.
Right.
Because a losing trade is a catastrophic loss to that account.
Right. To that amount that you've put up in that. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and I should say this is an extremely aggressive. The way he trades is extremely aggressive. I'm not promoting that everybody should go out and trade that aggressively. I certainly don't. But since the question was about the 10 trades, that would be the answer. It's a very aggressive trade, and
yeah, it might be a good point then now maybe talk a little bit about sort of what you do in your trading. And there's a question here from Lewis saying, can you repeat what, is your trigger to take some trades? So you've said a few times you kind of do things a little bit differently. So maybe talk a bit about, some of your twists on things and what you like to look for.
Well, I usually on the R3, S3, I will, I don't use a buffer, first of all, for the R3, S3. And I generally just place an entry 30 pips, or 30 pips before the R3 and S3, It usually opens and closes, and it's not really a big deal. It's 20 or 30 pips. That's just something because I do it because it's there, because I know it works, and I don't trade the size where it's a moderate size I trade. I don't trade something where I'm expecting to make my entire week's pay on that trade. I use my main way of trading is basically something maybe we can cover in a future webinar, is with this radar screen here, which is based on statistical deviation. And I basically use that on a 1 minute chart on the pound yen. I almost exclusively trade pound yen, and the only thing I trade on pound Swiss are those pivot points.
Maybe give us an example on the R3, the S3, just some more. You were scrolling really fast. It's kind of hard to see, like what a trade might look like.
Okay, well, here's something. I'm going to tell you something I've been testing, and I have not ready to quite take it live yet, but when I lost my, oh, here we go. Okay, the Sunday candle. If the week opens up and the weekly pivot is below, I will trade. I'm still testing this. I'll trade a breakout of the low of the Sunday candle to the corresponding R3 or S3. So in this case, the weekly pivot is below the Sunday candle. So I'm testing trading a breakout of the Sunday candle to S3. On this week here, the weekly pivot is below the Sunday candle, and we hit S3. So that worked. This week here,
Chris.
Yeah.
Where might you take that trade though? What might be the sort of an idea for entry on that kind of trade?
A breakout of the Sunday candle.
Just a breakout, literally. As soon as it breaks, you just take it. Market order. You just hit it.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, like I said, and I'm still testing. I think I mentioned that to you actually 2 or 3 weeks ago, that it was something I was looking at, and the results have been good so far. But I'm certainly not ready, to endorse it as a system or a method. But that's currently what I'm looking at now. And what I hope to gain from that is, like I said, I was trading these R3 S3s for 20 or 30 pips, and I'm thinking maybe just of gaining another 20 pips. If I could get 50 pips out of these R3 S3s instead of 20 or 30.
Chris, just a clarification for Belinda. How do you define the actual Sunday candle?
Well, you need a MetaTrader platform that displays the Sunday candle. This happens to be Gain or Forex.com, Gain Capital or Forex.com. I believe IBFX, I believe their MetaTrader platform displays a Sunday candle. You can check your own platform, the one, whatever someone is currently using now, to see if they have a Sunday candle. Not all of them do, and it's not something that I believe you can edit in your platform. So you could just download a demo of Gain Capital's MT4 platform, and you would be all set. Did that answer the question?
I think it did, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And everything, this what we're talking about now, everything is based on that Sunday candle, which is this.
Right. So you've got to be able to display that.
Yeah. So let's say this one here. Actually, the weekly pivot is slightly below. So I would have traded to S3, which would have worked out. Weekly pivot is below. This one hit R3 and S3. With this new method I'm working on, I would have taken a trade to to the S3, which would have worked out. And I think that sort of gives you an idea of what I'm doing with the R3 and S3s. I know other people that do different things, but I just don't. I don't do them. I just found that they're not as high a probability as what I'm doing now.
We have a question from Floyd asking about the moving averages. I mean, are those things that you, I know you've got them on your chart, do you actually use those? And if so, if you want to share your settings or not, if they're of interest.
Yeah, sure. I have no problem. The red moving average is a 62 EMA. The blue moving average is a 200 SMA. And the black dashed moving average is a 800 SMA. And when this is part of a system that I was using when I first learned to trade. The first system I was using where I started making a few bucks, and over the years, just having them on my chart sort of like tells me what condition we're in. So for instance, obviously the 800 is a big moving average, the 200. If this pair were in a complete downtrend on this 4-hour chart, the 62 should be below the 200. But it's not. It's between the 800 and the 200. So that tells me we're not really in a very, very strong downtrend on this particular time frame. And every time frame is different. But it's just something I started using a long time ago, and I just feel comfortable using them. I open my chart and I get an instant visual reference as to market condition.
Just going back to the Sunday candle quickly. A question: is the Sunday candle at the open of the Forex market at 7 p.m.? Is that correct?
Well, it might be 7 p.m. in some time zone. Like they say, it's got to be 5 o'clock somewhere, So in my case, it opens up at for MetaTrader, it opens up at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Right. Okay.
And
yeah, that's pretty common on a lot of platforms.
Yeah, and that's why also I was talking about the use of buffers with the weekly pivot, because different time zones, different spreads, different feeds. That's
Absolutely.
Just as a rule, we found that using that buffer is sort of what works best. That weekly pivot thing, the money management is probably the most important thing of the system. Most of the 2 years that Mike spent researching this were devoted to the proper placement of the take profit and determining that roughly his margin call would occur approximately when the first trade that opened, the one that he opened that was 70 pips from the weekly pivot, when that first trade is roughly down 80 pips, that's about where the account would margin call. And most of the work, the most time-consuming part of the work that he spent on the system was on money management. So money management is very important to optimizing a system. It's just as much a part of the system, as actual signals or whatever it is. Whatever it is the system uses. You have a system that uses an MA cross, so that's the signal. But the money management is just as important part of the system as anything else. Maybe the most important part.
Chris, just before we move on, if we can just answer a couple more questions. The Sunday candle, is that included in the weekly pivot?
Well, the weekly pivot is just the high plus the low plus the close divided by 3 of the previous week's pivot.
Is that including
week's, weekly candle?
Is that including the Sunday trade, the Sunday market?
I've never actually checked that. Since
okay,
it occurs,
something to get back on.
Yeah, since it occurs before this pivot is printed, I would assume yes, but I'm never actually checked, so I
Not
can't be 100%
100%.
sure. But since
Okay,
it's
we'll have to
printed
get back on
before
that.
the pivot, I would assume yes.
Okay, next question. On the Sunday candle breakout type trade, where would you personally, within your money management, place your stop? Where would you get out? Where would you be wrong?
Well, it would get a little more complex now because I would drop to a lower time frame, like maybe the half hour, and I would draw some trend lines. And if the trade is going against me and breaks a trend line or breaks a previous high or low, I would exit.
Okay, so you will use multiple time frames dependent on where you are within your trade.
Yes, because like I said, this little breakout thing is something I started working on about 3 weeks ago. So
Okay.
there are no really. It's still a work in progress, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But from from my experience, I really like support and resistance using trend lines. It's the simplest form of trading that there is. And when you see something break a trend line, it usually should tell you that you're either right or you're wrong. And that's what I'm currently using.
Okay. Do we have time to look at that, or do we need to move on with the shorter time frame?
It's probably probably move on a little bit even because that could take a little while. It's very subjective, as far
Yes,
as
it is. It's very subjective.
Okay.
Okay, so Chris, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to share, or if we want to kind of open it up to general questions, or of course they can ask more specific questions about pivots.
Yeah,
but
sure.
people
That's right. Yeah, this is. I just like I said, I just wanted to. I wasn't trying to push any system on anyone. I mentioned the mechanical system that this fellow Mike uses because of a post on the website. My main intent was just to make people aware of how these weekly pivots and R3s and S3s and daily pivots can be implemented in their trading. It's not really like rocket science. It's really simple. If you haven't been doing anything like this previously, don't rush in and start doing it. But just pay attention and maybe put the indicator on your charts and start watching it. And like I said, it's not rocket scientist. There's a lot of smart traders out there, and I'm sure there's ways that people can figure out how to make money with this.
So the 4-hour chart that you use, been several questions on this. For this type of trading, you find the 4-hour chart to be the best representation of what you're looking for visually?
Not necessarily. I use the 4-hour chart in this webinar just because I could compress. I could get a lot of time.
Sure.
On the chart, and you could see the entire weekly pivot. That's the only reason I have the 4-hour chart for this presentation. Obviously, for the breakout, the breakout of the Sunday 4-hour candle, obviously you would want to have the 4-hour chart for that, just to see what your high and low was. So
yeah, you're going to get the
actually
same.
you could probably even you could use a daily candle for that actually, and just look at the Sunday daily candle and get the same numbers. So
sure, right. You're going to get the same pivots and S3s.
Oh yeah, the pivots will be absolutely the same, whether you're on the 1-minute time frame or the daily time frame. So.
Okay. I know somebody wanted to hear more about the radar screen, but like Chris mentioned, we probably have to save that for a future presentation.
Yeah,
that's a whole other
really
thing.
Completely. It's a whole another ball of wax, as they say. So.
Gary was asking
something I would be happy to do in the future.
Sure. Gary was asking where to find more information about this specific system. Is that something you got posted on the Traders Lab forums?
No, it's not. This is a system that like I said, I don't believe too many people use pivot points in this way. And I got involved with a group of traders. It was a trading group, and we would just get together weekly basis. Unfortunately, it seems it's sort of fallen apart and we don't get together anymore, but we used to get together on a weekly basis, and we would post a chart, and we would all just give opinions about what we think. See, I happen to like the pound yen, so when the pound yen come up, people would ask me what's going on with the pound yen, and another guy is a Aussie dollar expert. So another guy loves the euro yen, and we would just go around. Maybe there were probably 20 members in the group at any given time. Maybe 8 of them would show up for the weekly get together, and we would just sort of have like a chart school. We used to refer to it as chart school.
By the way, just if anybody's interested, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. I think there's a section on Traders Lab where you can actually do a workshop. If anybody is interested in holding any groups and talking about things, then you can do that. Obviously, the forums are a great source, and people discuss things all the time there. But if anybody wanted to do it that way, then that's possible as well.
Correct. Yeah, you can have a separate forum set up and share information within a group. That's correct. So we've got a few minutes left. We're just about out of time here, but it might be a good time if you've any of you guys out there that are still hanging in there with us, if you've got any general trading questions or anything like that, or I don't know, James, if anything comes to mind as you've seen the presentation. I know you're more of a futurist trader, if I remember.
I am.
I don't know if there's anything you wanted to share or some thoughts that you've had in some of your recent trading in the last few minutes.
Well, just on this, I mean, I noticed very quickly I'm not particularly aware of Chris's uses of pivot points, and it's been a bit of an eye-opener for me as well, so thanks for that, Chris. But one thing that I noticed very quickly was that that weekly, if it wasn't touched within that week, it really seemed like the market at least wanted to retest that level. Do you ever use that as a strategy? If a untouched weekly pivot retests and fails, to really then place a trade and have it power away from that area?
No,
or indeed if it crosses it.
No, but let's say if we have a weekly pivot, let's say 3 months ago there was a weekly pivot that was never hit, not even close,
right?
And price seems to be really overbought or oversold, and you can't understand why. And I'll enter a trade, and I'm going, wow, we've already broken this support, or we've already broken this resistance. So where is this thing going? Where can I place a take profit? And invariably, at least this, and this is just my perspective, because I look at things based around these pivots. If you drew some kind of Fibonacci, you might see the same thing on it, that maybe it's heading for a 61.8 fib. In my case, what I would see is that it's trying to touch that pivot that it never touched 2 months ago.
Sure.
So that's how, like pivots that are missed and it's over, the 3 week period is over. That's the only way I would view them as
so if
a magnet
it
and a possible take profit.
Or it went through there, you wouldn't use that to initiate a trade potentially.
I've never tested that.
Okay.
It's probably something that's worth testing, but
yeah, okay,
I've never tested that, so I just don't have.
It's just on this 4 hour chart. That was a real sort of visual thing that jumped out to me.
Yeah, I do that with Trendline.
Right.
What I'd like to do is, if I can just squeeze, I know it's like sort of off topic, but it's something I find works out well for me. Let's say a pair is in a downtrend. I'll draw a 4 hour channel. Say using the color red for the Trendline channel, and then I'll drop down to a half hour or an hour chart and draw another trend line. And if I get a break of the hour trend line, my take profit will be the trend line on the 4 hour channel. And as often as not, I look, and you really have to pay attention for either a break, or usually what you see though is a bounce actually. And I'll take it back up to at least the trend line on that 1 hour and maybe the top of the 4 hour channel. A lot of things depend to what day of the week it is. If it's a Friday, generally I try not to trade on Fridays because
talking
things
about
start
that,
moving, you get all excited, and then in the afternoon things just peter out. And
I believe there is a just on what you were saying. I think there is a thread that we have within our forum on that, basically, where you're talking about like a trend channel within a trend channel within a trend channel. They generally look at I think it may be the price volume relationship, I think, within the technical analysis forum.
yeah,
But
there's
I'm
an
not
indicator
100%.
that'll also draw a. There's an indicator up there. I can't remember what it is now. If I can find it, I'll upload it. That will use Fibonacci's to draw channels.
Okay.
And you could trade up and down, back and forth inside the Fibonacci channels.
No, that's very interesting.
And that the type of trade that I described, breaking. So you have two trend lines, a 4-hour trend line and a 1-hour trend line. Trading the smaller time frame to the larger time frame is something I call a two trendy. Because you're trading between two different trends, two different trend lines. I'm sure other people have other names for it.
The radar screen that you have, that's a slightly different topic. I mean, I don't really know. Generally, are we talking about more towards this this original system that you learned, you used that for, or other additional uses for it? And can you sort of adjust it to your particular criteria, or is it something that is like a custom indicator? I mean, I really don't know MetaTrader, so
that's an amazing question, James. I would almost wonder, like, who's in the audience over there. Is that your question, or is that come from the audience? Because I'm just curious about that.
It was a question from Floyd Sura. We had a just question if you could explain the screen a bit more.
Okay, well, these three moving averages, we had a system based on these three moving averages
right,
that a lot of us had been using for a long time. And in the back of our mind, we're always trying to figure out when price would be making a move to the 800 simple moving average, and under what conditions. So for instance, the 62 hit the 800, and that means that the market is in a special phase. When price hits the 800, it sort of changes the phase. And it's not a super complex system, but there is a lot to it that it would take some time to explain. Subsequent to that system, the radar screen was developed to tell us how far price was from the 800 moving average, how long it's been away from the 800 simple moving average, and what the average is, and what the standard deviation is.
Okay. So can that be adapted, or?
Well, actually, that's exactly what I did when I would have a trade open on that system. If there was a missed weekly pivot beyond the 800, I would target the missed weekly pivot rather than the 800.
Okay. And
because the 800 is such a large number for a moving average, even on a 15-minute time frame, you could be talking about a 200 pip move.
Right.
So for instance, I just changed to the 1 minute chart. Okay. On the 1 minute chart, this pair is obviously it's trending down, because here's the 800, here's the 200, here's the 62, and you have nice spacing. They're not all mixed up together. They're all nicely spaced. Price right now is 59 pips below the 800 simple moving average, and it's been away for 56 bars or 56 minutes. The average, 31 pips. We would wait, more or less, the rule of thumb is that 500 candles is one standard deviation. So once this 1 minute chart has been away from the 800 simple moving average for 500 bars, right now it's at 56 bars, but 500 bars, you would wait for a setup to trade back up to the 800 simple moving average. And let's say we were at 500 bars now, which we're not, but just because I have. So what I would do would be something like this. Wait for a break of that trend line and trade it up, see if we're going to make it back up to the 800. Ideally, though, I wouldn't be looking for that now because the spacing of these moving averages is really nice separation here. I'd want to see the 62 start turning up a little bit, maybe be a little closer to the 200, maybe even have crossed the 200. You know, the crossing is not a signal in itself, but it's just telling me something that it's no longer clearly trending, you know. So maybe at that point I would draw another trend line and wait for a break of that second trend line.
And see if it's turning into a new trend rather than just a retracement. Yeah,
and at times the pound yen moves so fast that even on 1 minute, this setup on a 1 minute chart would probably be good for like 40 or 50 pips, you know.
Okay. Well, I think that's
right now this is telling us here that right now that particular setup is only available right now on the daily chart.
Is this something that's available freely, or is it something that
I've already uploaded
asked
it to
nicely
the site.
for?
Yep.
Sorry, you have.
I've already uploaded it to the site.
Can
it's called Radar Screen.
Oh, okay, sure, right. Let me see if I can find that. I think it may be on the original link.
Oh, now see here. Okay, just to take it another step on the daily chart, and I'm just, you know, like I said, I'm not a professional presenter. I'm just a trader, you know, rattling here now. On the daily chart, we've been away from the 800. The 800 simple moving average is so far away you can't even see it. It's 1,175 pips away. It's all the way up there. We've been away for over 1,000 candles, so we're beyond the second standard deviation. The 62 has, in fact, you no longer have that separation that we had on the 1 minute chart. The 62 has indeed crossed the 200 simple moving average. I don't usually trade. I don't trade off the 1 minute charts, but let's say if you wanted to draw a trend line, let's say this is just something quick. Let's say if you did something, well, let's say you want to be absolutely sure. So let's make this, okay, the most recent high. So you break this trend line that corresponds to the most recent high, and if you were the type of person that traded the daily chart, that could be a nice trade. Then again, you know, we may never break this trend line, but that's the way I would use it. I don't use it, like I said, on the daily chart, though.
Okay. Just a question now for everybody who's here. Are there any more questions before we finish up, or is everybody happy with the knowledge that they've gained today? This webinar was being recorded, right, Mark?
Yes, that's correct. So
it will be available within a day or so.
Yeah, probably a day or two. We'll be able to get it up on the site and post it. So no problem.
So if anybody wants to replay it at any point and, you know, mull over any of the points, then that's they can do that at their leisure.
Definitely. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap it up. So, James, appreciate your help manning the controls there, and Chris, good job, like you said. I mean, you know, you're a trader first. This is what you're all about. So, but you did good. It's always a little awkward at first presenting and talking, and you don't really have people out there to look at you to feed off of. But you know, did a good job, and appreciate the information. And we'll try to hold some more of these webinars in the weeks and months ahead, and you know, it's the best price of all. It's free, so we do appreciate you guys taking your time out. So, any closing comments from Chris or James? Go for it.
No, let's say thanks for everybody for coming.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for attending. Yeah.
See you again soon, hopefully.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.